Hello, everybody. Welcome to 3Q, New Mexico's premier business podcast. I am Pam Myers.
And I am Erica Yoakum.
Woohoo! And we weekly interview New Mexico business owners around the state to give them an opportunity to share what they do and talk about their business. And today's guest is Paul Oostenbrug. Paul is an independent insurance agent that specializes in senior health care. And right now it's open enrollment for Medicare, which is why we felt like it was an important time to bring Paul on. So welcome, Paul. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much, Erica and Pam.
You're one of our favorite people. So of course, we love having you here. Anyway, so Medicare, because it's like, Part A, Part B, Blue Planet. I don't even know, right? There's like so many things.
Well, there's a lot of parts to Medicare. There's lots of plans in Medicare. And I think what your listeners would want to know is that there's lots of confusion in Medicare, but it really isn't that complex. Right. People should be looking at ways to reduce their risk and enhance their benefits. And you can do that with Medicare. Agents can help, like myself, can help you.
So what do you mean reduce your risk? What is that? Explain that like I'm dumb.
Sure. Medicare covers 80% of the cost. And if you just have a red, white, and blue card, that means you'll be responsible for 20% of the cost, plus some deductibles. Oh, and that won't be a problem if you're going to see a doctor. But what happens if you end up in the ICU? What does 20% of an ICU day cost? I don't know, but I bet it's unhappy. I bet it's really unpleasant when you get the bill.
Right. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And so then navigating those extra plans, that's where it gets a little tricky, right? Because you want to make sure you get the right coverage.
Yeah. And so without getting too far into the weeds, there's managed care plans and there's supplement plans that are just designed to cover that 20%.
Now, you're an independent insurance broker, right?
Correct.
Why would I want to go with an independent as opposed to some big conglomeration? I know what my personal answer is, but what do you, when people ask you that question, what do you say?
Well, the real thing that an insurance broker like myself should be doing is finding out what's the best plan for you. And if you're just going to a representative, what they call a captive agent that works for XYZ company, guess what plans they're going to recommend?
It kind of says it all in the name, doesn't it?
Right.
Captive agent.
Yeah. So that may not be the best plan for you.
Yeah.
Right. There is some good news in the Medicare world. The federal government has made Medicare benefits richer in 2024. If you manage to go, well, let's start with the simple stuff. They're capping premium increases. They're giving everybody who's diabetic a $35 copay or less on their insulin products. Wow. And vaccines are all zero.
Wow.
They're making the overall parameters of these prescription drug plans richer. But there's usually a cost when something gets richer, right?
Right.
But
they're moving some of the drugs, and the insurance companies that run these Medicare prescription drug plans have to do this. They're moving some of their drugs off of the low cost tier 1 and tier 2 generic categories, and they're applying the deductible more often. So my number one message to everybody is talk to an agent like myself, or go to Medicare.gov and research what the plan you're in now is going to cost you next year, because you don't want to be surprised.
Right.
Yeah.
No. Right.
Especially with the pharmacy stuff. That's always scary.
And do you handle a certain area, Paul, or can you help anyone like in New Mexico, or how does that work with what you do?
I'm licensed throughout the state of New Mexico, and I represent all of the plans. Well, I don't represent all the plans. I'm working on 2 of them still, but my goal is to represent all of the plans, to be able to say, here's this plan. Nobody else is interested in it, but it may be the right fit for you. Let me explain it to you.
Right.
And then it's always at the customers, the consumers' interest. If they don't like it, well, that's fine. My goal is to educate people.
Right.
If they do
Right.
like it, that's also fine.
Yeah.
So this open enrollment, what happens if midway through the year I go, nope, I don't like this one. I want a different plan. Can you change it mid-year, or you can only change it once a year?
Well, you can change it quarter year. This is a relatively new process. It's called the open. So we're entering the annual enrollment period, which runs through December 7th. And on January 1st, we enter the open enrollment period. And that is if you're in a Medicare Advantage prescription drug plan and you don't like it. And those are the plans that most New Mexicans enroll in because they tend to have 0 premium. Doesn't cost anything other than your Medicare Part B premium.
Mm-hmm.
But to speak to your question, Erica, if somebody is in a plan and they don't like it, they can change in January, February, or March.
Mm-hmm.
That's different. I don't remember that it being
Well, it's
so
new. It's newish. Yeah. And it's really
Okay.
important because people can be surprised.
Right.
right.
I
They
mean,
think they've got it nailed down, and then they get into it and they go, oh, wait, that doesn't cover this. I got to go look. Yeah. So that's good that's allowed now. That's nice.
yeah.
Well, I always have, so any insurance agent should have this kind of a conversation. What doctors do you see? What prescription drugs do you take? And if
Mhm.
somebody forgets to tell me, like one of my customers, that he saw staff clinicians at New Mexico Orthopedics, guess what? I could put him into a plan that didn't cover those providers. And guess
Right.
what? He wasn't happy with that situation, but he could change.
Mhm.
Similarly, if you get a new prescription because something's changed in your medical needs, if that prescription isn't covered by the current plan you're on, we got to figure out the solution to that, don't we?
Right.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. It seems like it's a lot more flexible than it used to be. Yeah.
I think that's true. And the good news for some people are, unfortunately, well, they see a lot of providers and they use a lot of prescription medications.
Mhm.
And on the prescription drug side, part of these changes that make the prescription drug plans richer is that once you go through the donut hole, which actually isn't tasty like a donut, but it's this, you're responsible for 25% of the drug cost, then your drugs won't cost you anything. And so that's down rather considerably from this year when they could.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
It's
And then
it's
and this I'm sorry, go ahead, Pam.
no, I was just going to say it's fascinating information, and it's a learning curve, right? To understand all of this stuff and what works depending on what your usage is, basically, right?
Well, if you have a good employer provided insurance plan, I
Mhm.
don't think you would find it terribly different. But I also sell marketplace plans, and many
Mhm.
of those plans have $6,000, $8,000 deductibles. On the medical side, Medicare doesn't have any medical deductible by and large.
Right.
If it
Really?
does, it's $230.
Mhm.
So you don't have, it takes away a lot of the worry that many people have about their insurance. Well, I've got this plan and I can afford it, but if I get sick, I'm going to be bankrupted. Well, I guess it's good that you have a catastrophic plan, but medical debt, as you both know, is a really big thing. And they're even talking about putting medical debt outside of the credit reporting system.
Right. I heard that. Yeah.
So what does that mean? So it wouldn't act against you. So if you had a lot of
It,
debt,
it
it
would allow
wouldn't.
you to get loans for other things, even though you've got this large amount of medical debt.
Right.
Medical debt is responsible for something like a quarter of all bankruptcies.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a mess. And what's the solution to that? Well, get into a plan that won't put you in debt if you can.
Right.
Or move to
Right.
Sweden. One of the two. I don't.
Well,
Sorry.
that'd
Go
be
to Europe.
costly too.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry. No. That was a smart ass answer, but I read about the stuff. People jump into these things and they're like, "Oh, you must be in America." It's like, yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. We've got other freedoms. This isn't one of them. It's a tough one. It is definitely a tough one, especially because, and thankfully, there's people like you that can explain all of this stuff, because it can be overwhelming to look at all the, like I said, all the different ways to massage all the plans together to get the best plan for yourself.
Right.
At least you have the choice, and it's not, it used to be much more like, this is it. You pick one of the two and you stuck with it for a year.
Well, if you are in a conversation with somebody that says, here's the only plan you should consider, you should begin to have question marks.
Right.
What you should expect from your insurance agent is that person listens to you. And there's lots of insurance agents out there. Find one that does listen to you.
Right.
It's kind of like finding a good doctor, right?
Right.
Sure. Well, that's a whole other dilemma. Yes, Erica.
Right.
But you definitely want somebody who's going to pay attention to your specific needs. Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
Wow.
So if people would like to reach out to you, how can they do that, Paul? What's the best way?
Probably via my website, shopmedicarenm.com.
Great. Awesome. Yeah.
I can set up a phone call there. I can set up a brief, tell me what your questions are, conversation there, and you can look at plans there too.
Fantastic.
I can look at plans that like that isn't going to confuse me even more. And I'll definitely have to talk to you, because I'll be like, wait.
My colleague Elaine and I have said about those plan looking options, we'll have to guide somebody through it, because there's just like there's lots of issues, there's lots of plans.
Right.
Oh, two other things. 2 insurance companies are leaving the Medicare market in New Mexico. Molina and Amerigroup aren't going to be offering their plans next year.
Wow.
So if somebody has one of those 2 plans, they don't want to find themselves in a situation on January 1st where they're back on original Medicare and they're responsible for 20% of the cost.
Right. Wow. Yeah.
Wow. That is big. Molina. Yeah, that's a big one, because we have Molina healthcare buildings all over the place. So that's going to be.
Well, Molina's not leaving the marketplace, meaning Affordable Care Act or Obamacare, but they are leaving Medicare. And sadly, they won the Medicaid contract, so they're going to be back next year, but they're leaving this year. So that was sort of an error on Molina's part.
Oops. Somebody forgot to file the paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Paul, thank you so much for.
You're very welcome.
Yeah. Appreciate you coming
to see your
on.
smiling faces, both of you.
Oh, thank you.
I know, we miss you. Yeah. And thank you for what you do, because it's a thicket to have to cut through. So it's nice to have somebody who can decipher the language and help folks make a clearer decision for their health. Because that's pretty scary stuff, especially, because everybody, and when you start talking about medical stuff, people get all, we don't want to make the wrong decision.
Right.
Well, people want to have confidence that their needs are going to be met and they're not going to be at terrible financial risk. And again, I'm happy to help people find the answers to those questions. So are most other insurance agents, but find one who listens. Okay.
Right. Find one who listens. Yes. And you can reach Paul again. Can you put up Paul's website? Yep. shopmedicarenm.com.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks everybody for listening. Keep listening to our podcast and let us know if you want to come on and talk about your business. We'll see you again soon.
Cool. Take care.